Love and joy to you all. Welcome to this Monday video. And happy solstice. We are in the run up to the solstice. We are very much nearly there. I'm sure everyone is feeling the fascinating energy come in waves. I think I may have to do a video on this because this video here, this is a continuation of last week's Monday musing. Last week we spoke of these two these shadow wounds in the collective right now, the shadows of the feminine, the shadows of the masculine, and how we perceive them with the phrases, she's a drama queen, or he's toxic, he's a narcissist. Those phrases get bandied about a lot. And we spoke last week about, how they may arise for us and what they may be reflecting for us, and how we were really honest and truthful about how we can start to look at those things that we hear ourselves saying and look at them in a different light. Look at them with a curiosity, kind of like asking which part of ourselves are saying those things. What part of myself is seeing this person as toxic? What part of myself presumes that this person is a drama queen, or whatever, however we choose to phrase that? Because it is a big thing. It is a big thing because what happens is the collective field of energy, it releases things at the same time. And that's how we get our peaks and flows of themes, right? Of themes, of issues, of, politics or whatever. I mean, not necessarily actual politics, but, kind of social politics. They're collective things wishing to release. And that's essentially why this Monday series started, was to address the chakras and how they are ascending and what they're releasing, what collectively we're releasing. Because the whole collective, we spoke about this before, the whole collective is present within our own being as well, right? It's present within our own being. Everything outside of ourselves is within us on some level. Right? Just because we're not necessarily saying consciously those things doesn't mean we're not vibrationally. Now, this is an extension of last week's video because there were some incredible and really raw questions that came up. And I want to do the honor to those that want to ask those questions, that stuck with the video, that felt the uncomfortableness that perhaps arose, because it did and it does. And when we are faced with a view or someone is saying something that feels uncomfortable, that's actually a really good thing. It's a really good thing, because what feels uncomfortable is that, there's some resistance within me to hearing this. And why does resistance come from? Resistance comes from a split in our own energy. If you heard the star beings on Saturday, they spoke about soul fragmentations, how that doesn't exist. It's just fragmentations of the energy. And this actually is a good extension of that. Because when we feel uncomfortable, that is showing us there is emotion there. Emotion shows us that we believe two different things. But who is the we? Let's start here. Who is the we? Well, the we is me, my higher self, my heart, free-flowing love, divine orchestration, bliss, everything just creating and manifesting and doing exactly as we want it, and even better than we could have ever predicted. So much so that it's only divine orchestration. That versus the rest of the voices within us, the rest of the personalities within us. Personalities can also be called ego identities. We have multiple identities within us. Not just one, but multiple streams of energy, multiple memories, multiple personalities, multiple identities that have been created through experiences and emotion. Now, if we nurture a part of a personality, a characteristic, a behavior, a pattern, if we continue thinking a thought for a long while, it becomes a pattern, it becomes a behavior, it becomes ingrained, it then becomes hidden. Oh, now this is a big one. This is a big one. If we practice something for long enough and we feed it with enough emotion, because emotion is what feeds, what expands things. Emotion is a magnifying glass. If we feed a behavior that is formed from the ego, from the subconscious, from the inner child even, if it's formed at a young enough age and it is fed with enough emotion, and that emotion could just be little, it could be boredom, frustration, uncomfortableness, it could be something big like humiliation, shame, guilt. If it is fed with enough, what happens is it becomes that pattern, that behavior, and then it becomes invisible. That's a big one. Let's say it again. If we feed the pattern or the behavior with enough emotion, we do that without realizing. We do that just because our emotions are literally telling us what we are thinking. It does. It tells us what we're thinking. If you see, for example, let's look at a situation here where, for example, you could receive a text from someone, and and we know that we can't hear in texts, right? If someone says, "Oh my God, you're hilarious," in a message, it's just written out. There's nothing to depict what tone they are using. Someone could read that and go, "Oh, someone thinks I'm hilarious. This friend is like saying they're complimenting me." But we also know that that phrase could be said sarcastically, like, "Oh my God, you are hilarious." There's two very different intonations, two very different energies. When we read that text, the thing that determines how we respond is how we choose to see it, what our truth is. Another way of saying that is what we believe. So if we read it and go, "Oh my gosh," and you hear it being said sarcastically, in your mind, that's because there is something there that's kind of expecting to see that, is expecting to receive it that way. And then we're going to feel an emotion like, like we're going to feel upset. We're going to feel like disheartened. Our emotion is telling us we're seeing it in a way that isn't wholesome. It isn't holy, it isn't wholesome, it isn't heart-based. Whether or not that person said it in that way, we don't know until we ask them. But our emotions tell us how we're thinking, because it tells us the behaviors, the thoughts, the subconscious ones too. And then the emotion, it's like a never-ending cycle. It's perpetual. The emotion then feeds and validates, is a better word. The emotion then validates that belief. Well, I felt like this, so it must be true. Oh. Now, this is really important to know for the extension of this video here, because the questions that came in, a couple of them were relating to experiences of abuse. Okay, so I maybe should have done a pre-warning here. This, once again, like all the videos that I do, we address any topic. There's no topic off limits. And we don't necessarily go into any graphic details, but they are sometimes challenging videos to watch. So do take a moment to pause if you need to breathe, if you need to come back to it if you need to. But just allow your heart to be open and observe what is being said. Just to observe it. Nothing is personal, nothing is directed towards you. Do what you wish with this, with what you hear. So, what about situations of abuse, of financial abuse, maybe financial control? Like, to me, that is saying that he is a narcissist. Like he financially controls me. Okay, well, what is that? First, let's look at what it is. Because in the first video, we said, well, if you were to write a list of all these things that make you feel really uncomfortable, you aren't a fan of from another person, but then erase your own name, delete your own name, and delete their name and write your own on top, you then see instantly your shadows. You see instantly your shadows, because our shadows, once again, like we said at the beginning, are invisible. So, how do you apply that though? Because that's not to say that we write down the actions. Actions are just a byproduct. Words are a byproduct of a vibration. It's the things like the vibration that we want to tune into to really understand the spectrum here. How we move from a wounded or distorted aspect of self or of the feminine, of the masculine, and move it into wholeness, into sovereign. Well, okay, so he's controlling with money. So what he perhaps wants to know. He perhaps wants to know where money is going, how it's going. He perhaps doesn't say yes to spending things, this, and this. Now, what is money? Money is energy. Money is energy. So he's got very strong boundaries, perhaps, with money, because money, to everyone, really, is energy. Whether we realize it or not, it's an energy flow. How flowing can we allow our energy fields to be? Because money as well is a bit of an interesting one, because it's the most charged topic that exists. So, okay, well, let's break it down like this. Money is energy. So he's controlling with money. He's toxic. He's controlling with money. He's like, I can't breathe. It's really manipulative. Is it manipulative? Or is it that he's got very strong boundaries and structure and expectation about how his energy, or however that looks, flows? It's not to say that he's acting from his heart. We're not saying that. What we're saying is we're just opening it to be curious. Let's be curious. Let's observe and just be curious. He's got boundaries. Okay. With energy. Now, if we look at other forms of energy, that could be love. That could be just in general what we breathe, breathing in, breathing out. Can we receive compliments? Money is an extension of self-worth as well. Someone with high self-worth doesn't go around saying, I am worth more than this, I am worth this, I am worth that, because you're only saying that really for your own benefit. So when we look at something like money and someone controlling that is a direct mirror. That's a direct mirror to an energy vibration within self. Right? So how are we creating a situation like this? Well, we create it because we perhaps are the complete opposite. It can be a mirror, but it can also be one of those mirrors, and that's got a different shape to it, and it distorts the image. It's not about the action. It's not about the actual physicality of it. It's about the vibration underneath it. And the vibration underneath it is energy flow, energy freedom, energy sovereignty. Are we able to receive with grace? Are we able to offer with grace? Do we feel limited? We tend to create situations of financial control around us when we have such strong emotion around the flow of energy. So let us break this down even further. Maybe when growing up, maybe we had a mother who was over-giving. She gave, and then had resentment for it because she gave with an expectation rather than just giving because it felt amazing and aligned and just like a divine channel. Instead of that, she was giving through obligation. You see how one is whole from the heart because it feels amazing to give, and there's no expectation someone receives it. There's no expectation of what will come back from it. It's just, this feels so perfect. I can't not give whatever it is. And it's not something I would usually give. It's not something, it's just, this feels amazing to give right now because it just feels so divinely perfect. I have zero attachment to what it is I'm giving. That's a wholesome way of offering something. Now, one of the wounds that collectively we're moving through is this give, resent. It's a wound of the mother, right? Giving, resent. And because the mother, she does nurture, she's meant to nurture her child, her children. But if emotionally she doesn't feel held, if the space isn't structured enough, right? Emotionally, if there is no masculine presence to hold a space, to help her feel safe in her emotions, then we start to shift our polarity. We start to shift. And then if we have a child, there can be a chance that then passes on to them and we feel smothered by our mother, hooked, right? This is an example. This is just an example about how this energy can create. So then what happens is we have this very wobbly structure within ourselves, because we've now taken the imprint of the wound of our mother, who probably took the imprint from the wound of her mother and the wound of hers and the wound of hers, or father. And we now have this very wobbly boundary where we feel we have to give, when it's either not expected, not wanted, it's giving for the wrong reasons. There's an expectation there as well that's not being fulfilled because the expectation isn't necessarily in highest good. So what happens when this is imprinted at a very young age, like as a child, is, going back to what we said at the start of the video, part of our self experiences an emotion when we feel something out of alignment. And when we are young, what our body will do, what our mind will do, what our personality, our characteristics, our mind will say, oh, this feels really uncomfortable. This doesn't feel good. I'm having to change how I behave to pacify this being who is apparent to me. Okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to reject the part of me that feels uncomfortable, that feels upset, that feels, about that. I'm going to reject that part of me. So instead of it feeling safe at home within me, I'm going to throw it out energetically. So now it's like a helium balloon. It's floating around you. This is a part of you floating around you, tied by a string. This is how shadows work. We can't see it though. Let's pretend we can't actually see that balloon. But every time we feel an emotion similar, on a vibrational spectrum similar to that energy exchange, give, resent, and the equal opposite of not giving or not receiving, there's a spectrum on the same energy scale. But every time we feel an emotion that makes our stomach clench, we're feeding that helium balloon. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, turning from a helium balloon into a hot air balloon, Now, we use this analogy here, we use this visualization to help see that when we're creating our life without realizing it, all those balloons, they're the subconscious. We can't see them. We don't know that they're there. We can't physically intellectualize them. But the vibration is strong enough to act like magnetism. It's like each balloon has its own gravitational pull. And everything in this world will always seek to balance itself. So if there is a energy of overgiving, it will balance itself by creating an energy of restriction and control, because the energy is simply trying to come neutral. It's trying to balance itself out of polarity, out of duality. It's trying to take the duality out of it. So this is how we create those things. We have to really allow ourselves to step back from how personal, how much emotion is there, because whilst there is emotion, we can't see clearly. And that's not to say ignore the emotion. That's not at all what we say. What we say is we've got to allow practice. We have to create space to practice breath work. Consciously breathing deeply. Not only consciously breathing deeply, but allowing the mind to become disciplined within ourselves. So what does that mean is that when we're breathing deeply and consciously, what that means is a thought will arise, and instead of chasing that thought and letting it run rampant, we go, thank you. I don't want to think that right now. I'm just breathing. And we bring the mind back to the heart. We carry on breathing. You can do this in the mirror. You can do this in the mirror. Just breathe with yourself. Look yourself in the eyes and just see yourself. Because when we start to do that, and we do that consistently for 3 minutes at a time, we start to see parts of ourselves that haven't been seen in a long time, that have been ignored and rejected, that have been pushed out of ourselves. So that's how we create these experiences. Consciously, we might say, I don't want this. If it doesn't feel good, it hurts. It's not honorable. It's not whatever. Whatever words we choose to use. how can I be creating that? Well, you're not consciously creating it. But it's very seldom found in this world that we are consciously, actively creating our reality. We're subconsciously, we're passively doing it right now. Right? We are still learning mastery. It takes practice. We have to practice self-observation, self-regulation of emotions. When we do that, we are able to really create, magnetize, and manifest in conscious alignment. It's all about feeling. Can you feel good about things? Can you choose to feel good? And the easiest way to feel good is by aligning the thoughts. Abuse is like, if it's physical abuse, it's a similar kind of thing. It's like, look for the energy spectrum. So someone causing harm to a body, especially if it's the opposite gender as well, that's representative of an inner conflict within self. If it's a man and you're a woman, then, there's a within on a vibrational level. And I know this can be a hard thing to hear if you're feeling something like this. So I do say, please use your own discernment if you are able to hear this, and just breathe through, because emotions will arise, I know. But everything in our reality, it's not really personal with anyone else. It's personal with ourselves. It's a reflection of our inner masculine, feminine energy. The masculine energy wants to hold a safe structure. If it doesn't feel it's been able to do that in this lifetime, that will reflect, because that's likely a shadow within us. We don't believe we deserve to receive love. Maybe we weren't touched as by our mother, by our father, in a pure way. Maybe we weren't held. Maybe we didn't have that level of contact. So our ego will put 2 and 2 together and create 75, and then say, well, if our parents didn't touch us, that must be something wrong with me. And so if I didn't receive that growing up, then I mustn't deserve that. So why should I be kind to my body if that's not what I've been taught? And then, okay, but that doesn't feel good. And instead of dealing with that emotion and letting it express and do the alchemy that emotions do automatically, I don't want to feel that emotion. I don't want to face it. So I'm going to reject it. That's now a rejected part of self. Once again, it's another balloon on a string. Every time we feel that rejection, it inflates the balloon. It becomes so big that it becomes an actual reality, until we start to change the initial dynamic. We have to start looking at our self-worth, our self-love, our self-value, feeling safe in our body, feeling safe with our own touch, feeling safe. Yeah, it's a big topic this week. Feeling safe. No expectation with self, just love. Not shaming ourselves for feeling something, not humiliating ourselves, not judging ourselves for feeling, or for our actions either. These are the remedies to that. These are the remedies to those experiences. This is how we start to move that and create a different reality. It's bit by bit. Once again, going back to those practices, do you love yourself enough? Will you devote yourself enough to 3 minutes a day of looking yourself in the eyes in the mirror, to breathing deeply while you're doing it and just seeing yourself, letting whatever emotion arise. And even if you aren't, saying, I love you. You are safe, to yourself in the mirror. Always use your first name if you're going to do that, by the way. It speaks to your inner child. Will we be devoted enough to ourselves? That's a big question. Because until we know, and I don't mean know with the mind, I mean know with the heart, until our whole body, our whole field of energy knows the love that we deserve to receive, and the balance of such, it will create things opposite in order to try and balance an imbalanced spectrum somewhere. Everyone has them, right? In this world, we're in a dualistic world right now. It won't be dualistic once we heal all this. So everyone's experiencing this on some level. It just depends on how much emotion was alchemized, how much emotion we've allowed to move through and express, for the stories to complete so that the forgiveness can happen, the love can happen. And the two opposite ends of that spectrum, the two dualistic seesawing sides, can then come back into balance as one. And that part of our life heals completely. So really long video this week. Thank you for sticking with it. Thank you for your love, your comments, your exchange of energy. It's always beautiful to see you and hear. And if this video you feel is helpful, do feel welcome to share it also. I will see some of you on the 28th of June when the wonderful Camilla Kumara and myself are going to be co-hosting an online workshop, Atlantis and the Ascension. So we're going to be delving into that beautiful golden thread of the heart, that sacred group of beings called the Ascensions. And then a couple of weeks later, if you are in Bournemouth or around, I have a wonderful in-person, quite a small little evening on Tuesday, the 11th of July. It's in Bournemouth. It's organized by Positive Living Group. I get the honor of being their last speaker of the season. 7 p.m. start. We're going to be talking about the art of going within. So this is about surrendering, how to surrender and live in that peace and that bliss, that calmness. And I know I will see some of you, because some of you watching this have already booked. I know I will see some of you on Sunday, the 16th of July, that 7/7 portal for a day, a full day in Emsworth, the lovely seaside place of Emsworth, for a day of embodied ascension. Right in between the solstice and Lionsgate, this wonderful day is going to really boost you up and help you anchor your light to move through the rest of July with the beautiful energy of the number 777, because we are doing it on a 777 portal. So there's a lot of incredible energy and incredible events coming up. So you can find all those links in the description below. But for now, that is all for me. Thank you so much for being.